On this episode, I want to start by tipping you off to a little tool that I've been using for around a decade now. That tool is a website called futureme.org. And if you go to futureme.org, you can see that here's a platform where you can send an email to yourself in the future, thus the name futureme.org. And you can pick the date that you want it to arrive. So sometimes I'll send an email to myself 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. It's kind of neat that you'll get an email like, oh, this is from the old me. And I'll use it for goal setting. Like, Jamie, here's where you should be in this category. And here's what I've accomplished by now. And so I like using that as a tool for goal setting. And this episode reminds me a little bit of that because I was going through some old questions. I have a file where I keep track of the questions and emails that I get, over the last few months. And this was an email that came from January of 2022, so quite a while back, and it came from an old friend, Ali Alami. I'm like, Ali, I better get to your question. So you've done a lot within the last 2.5 years. So I find this a little interesting. You asked, how can leaders and owners actively work toward reducing attrition with their teams and their businesses? And I'm like, Ellie, I have so much respect for you. You've done so well in business. And so here you are, this student that I'm like, wow, if anybody knows the answer to this question, right? Here you are asking me this question 2.5 years ago. So then I started asking you the same questions. I'm like, hey, Ellie, I'm curious how you feel about attrition. And I don't even know if you realize it or not, but you sent me that question like 2.5 years ago. So in this episode, I want to answer that question with your insight, with your counsel, because you went off on quite a few bullets on, well, here's what I think you can do to reduce attrition. Maybe I should start with the definition of attrition before I get into our bullets. It's the action or process of gradually reducing the strength or effectiveness of someone or something through sustained attack or pressure. So attrition could be a loss of headcount, it could be a loss of productivity, but we want to avoid attrition. So how can our leaders and owners work towards reducing attrition? That's today's episode. The first bullet that Ali and I both agreed on was, aside from hiring the right people, right? I mean, all's well that begins well, but we've got to set the right expectations. Just think of the definition again of disappointment, which is here's the expectation and then here's reality. That gap between the two is disappointment. So I don't want to be guilty of over-promising and under-delivering. I want to set accurate expectations of what people can go through. And it's great if we can over-deliver that. Well, you told me, Jamie, that the field was going to be this tough, or you told me there was going to be this amount of no's. And hey, it's not as gory as you told me. So you want to reduce attrition, set the right expectations, and get in the habit of under-promising, over-delivering. Honesty and transparency ranks high on the list if you want to reduce attrition. If you're not being forthcoming or you're not being transparent, people could wonder, like, well, if you're hiding this from me, what else are you hiding? There might be something shady about this business. So I love being honest and transparent with people. I remember years ago as the Fearless campaign manager, I'll spare you the details of the campaign, but I remember running a campaign meeting. I've got the dry erase board and I want to go through the numbers. I want to talk about the dollar per rep. So here's 4 of us on this campaign and we collectively earned $6. I know this might sound crazy. So $6 divided by 4 is $1.50 per rep. And I remember putting these numbers on the board and I'm making a comment like there's nowhere to go but up. And a new person in the office that overheard this commended me for being honest. Like that really turned the person on to the business. I think this individual might have been thankful they weren't on my campaign. They didn't quite say that. It's like, no, I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate the transparency. And so I think that can turn people on. Again, I think if you hide things, if you're not being honest with people, it can really turn people off. What else are you hiding? So default to honesty and transparency. Be genuine. I want to read this straight from Ali's lips. Truly focus on the best outcome for your people and not just your business or your profit and loss statement. Let your values govern your decision making and nothing else. Pass this messaging through your office and organizations. Well said. Be genuine. The fourth thing we agree on is standards, right? You got to set the bar somewhere, and high achievers crave accountability. They don't want to see people getting away with low performance, low standards. Again, a high achiever, like, that's not the crowd that I want to roll with. Whatever you tolerate, you endorse, right? So if you're tolerating, again, poor performance, that just really turns people off. The best people are going to be walking away. So set the standard, make it clear, set the right expectations, and make sure you're holding people to the highest standard. I'm a C-type personality, right? Conscientious. I believe Ali's a high D, and this came from his mouth, and this is the fifth thing that we agree on and are aligned with, is be proactive. Here's how he said it. Plan and prepare the one-on-one topics, leaders meetings, and morning meetings. Always try and proactively address the various typically recurring questions that your people are thinking about, but don't necessarily ask you about directly. So spend some time in the laboratory really thinking through, what do the people need to hear? What's on their minds? Be proactive. Part of my proactivity and part of my weekly planning is this, and feel free to adopt this. This is one of my values. Create special moments and special memories with special people. So what that really means is relationship building. What are you doing proactively to build relationships? What events can you put on the calendar where you can create those special moments and those special memories? But relationship building, relationships are the glue that keeps the team together. So make sure you're carving out the appropriate time to get to know one another and have the camaraderie with the team. Our seventh bullet point that we're aligned on is training. You want great training. Poor training will always result in attrition, right? If there's ever turnover, I can usually narrow it down to one of two things: did I hire the right person, and did I effectively train, right? Did I miss something in the training? If you get those two things right, I'm training well and I'm hiring the right people, attrition is going to be minimal. So effective training, in my opinion, just looks like a simple checklist. Again, make it systematic, that you put something in somebody's hands. Here's the checklist. Usually for me, it's day 1 through 10. Day 1, here's what you should expect, and here's what you should do. Day 2, and I always like putting a nice bonus at the end of it, that if you do these things, if you follow the yellow brick road, right? You're going to the Wizard of Oz, you follow the yellow brick road, there's a nice bonus waiting for you at the end. Sometimes it can be a bonus for the leader as well too. It can be a bonus for the new person. It can be something as simple as, let's schedule dinner together. Dinner's on me. Congratulations going through the training, but we want effective, systematic training. The last bullet is about effective matchmaking. Match your best recruits with your best people. Now, how do you define best people? Well, the rookie mistake would be, well, my best people are defined by their sales performance, the day before. Sometimes the best salespeople aren't the best leaders. I want the total package. That's what I mean by best. Somebody who, yes, they're performing, but they don't have to be number 1, 2, or 3. You just got to be a consistent high performer, but somebody that genuinely cares for the new people coming through the doors. Somebody that's spending time outside of work. Somebody that takes a sincere interest. So I don't do the matchmaking even just based on interest. Like, oh, well, you're a sports guy, so I'm going to match you with a sports guy in the office. No, it's really the values that I'm interested in. The values of, again, just sincere interest in the people. Match your best candidates up with your best leaders in your office. I hope you enjoyed going back in time with me to address Ali's question. But Ali, I think in 2.5 years, you've done a pretty good job figuring out how to reduce attrition. So well done to you, my friend. And for everybody, again, check out futureme.org. It's a great tool in setting goals. It's nice to get that email like, oh, I sent me this email. It was 6 months ago I sent it. How have I been doing? Am I achieving what I set out to do? And if not, what can I do differently? So use that tool. It's a fun way to goal set.